Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fiber Broadband Association's Five for Breakfast. We're now in our 41st episode of 2024. Before we kick off, I'd like to thank Wesco, the platinum sponsor of Five for Breakfast. I'm currently here in Calgary, Alberta, and we're holding our first Regional Fiber Connect workshop in Canada. And what a turnout, standing room only. And our speakers include top operators such as TELUS and rural Canadian operators such as Algonquin Fiber, along with the regulator, CRTC, and economic development specialist, PwC Canada. And we will be back in Canada, in Toronto in 2025 as part of our Regional Fiber Connect workshop series next year. And our final 2024 Regional Fiber Connect workshop will be on November 7th in Albuquerque, where we'll be focused on tribal broadband. So you're not going to want to miss that. We'll look forward to seeing you in Albuquerque. And we will end the year with our Premier member meeting in the Florida Keys on December 9th to 10th. So if you're a Premier member, please don't meet that as the best event of the year. Now, things are a little quiet right now in Washington as the election draws near, but Congress will be need to address passing the Farm Bill in a lame duck session. And that brings us to today's Five for Breakfast session with our guest, Andy Berke, the USDA RUS Administrator. We'll be discussing the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law historic broadband investment. Before I formally introduce today's guest, I'd like to introduce David Norris from our team, who will walk us through some housekeeping items.
Thank you very much, Gary, and thank you everybody for joining us today. We appreciate it. Before I go over a few logistics, we'd like to once again thank our platinum sponsor of Fiber for Breakfast, Wesco. Now, for everyone, please keep in mind all participants are in listen-only mode today. To ask a question, please type it into the question box, which is located in the upper right-hand side of the screen. We will host a Q&A session with our panelists at the end of today's session. This presentation is also being recorded and will be available on FBA's website within 24 to 48 hours. You can find that recording in the Events tab under the Fiber for Breakfast drop-down option. Finally, at the conclusion of today's presentation, you'll be prompted to complete a brief feedback survey. Please take a moment to do so. We appreciate your input. And with that, I will pass things back over to Gary to once again introduce our panelists and get us started. Gary?
Thanks, David, and good morning. I'm Gary Bolton, the President and CEO of the Fiber Broadband Association. Last week on Fiber Breakfast, our guest was Alberta Fellenbaum, one of the top industry analysts from Omnia, who discussed her latest research on looking beyond speeds, connected home monetization opportunities, and trends. Alberta encouraged ISPs to focus more on quality of service and experience over a simple price and speed offering to avoid the race to the bottom on price. If you missed last week's session, you can go to the Fiber Broadband Association's website to watch the replay. Today on Five for Breakfast, our guest is Andy Berke, the USDA RUS Administrator, who will be discussing the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law historic broadband investment. Andy joined USDA Rural Development with nearly 3 decades of experience as a political leader and elected official. He was the Mayor of Chattanooga, Tennessee from 2013 to 2021, where he served more than 180,000 residents and improved the efficiency and day-to-day operations of local government. Under Andy's leadership, Chattanooga operated its own wastewater system and received national recognition for improving access to high-speed internet for unserved communities. Andrew also has served as a member of the Tennessee State Senate from 2007 to 2012. In that role, he worked with electric co-ops and was a member of the Transportation and Education Senate Committee. Before joining Rural Development, Andrew was the special representative for broadband at NTIA at the U.S. Department of Commerce. He holds a JD from the University of Chicago Law School and a Bachelor of Science from Stanford University. Andy was named the Municipal Leader of the Year by the American City and County Magazine in 2015, the City Executive of the Year by the State Scoop in 2020, and was named Digital Inclusion Trailblazer by the National Digital Inclusion Alliance in 2020. So welcome, Andy. It's a pleasure to have you on Five for Breakfast. And let's start with how you got here. You have this amazing track record in gigabit broadband from your time as mayor of the world's first gigabit city, to your time in the state senate, to traveling pretty much to every state in the nation to help NTIA get the BEAD program off the ground. And now you're in your current role at USDA Rural Utility Service. Can you talk a little bit about how your career progression prepared you for your current role?
Great, and thanks, Gary, for having me on here. And also thanks to you and the association for your evangelism of something that you and I know each other pretty well after all these years, and you know that I'm a true believer in this. And so the evangelism really does help make sure that everybody is together and getting what we need to Americans all across our country. I don't know how I got here, Gary. It's sometimes things happen unexpectedly, but I do think that if you look, especially over the last 20 years, one thing that has been consistent is high-speed internet has been part of my work most everywhere that I've been. And it happens to be, since we're in 2024, about to be 2025, if you just think about the time period where I've been in elected office or kind of circling around there, that's also been the time period where you've seen this explosion of connectivity and the needs for connectivity all around the country. And so I guess as I'm thinking about your question now, one of the reasons why my career has kind of pushed so hard into this area is because that's where people's needs were over the last 20 years, and for many Americans, where it still is today in 2024. And so, Chattanooga was the first gig city. That's how we got our nickname. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to take advantage of that. I spent a lot of my career, looking at economic development related to the gig and talking to people all across the country about the gig and what you could do with it and where we were going with it. And then at the same time, as we were seeing progress on the economic development front, also seeing how it affected people who didn't have it. And even though there was connection that was at their house, they couldn't afford it, they couldn't use it. And so, we became the first community to offer free high-speed internet to every family with a child on free or reduced lunch. That was one of the last things I did when I was mayor. And also a ton of stuff about literacy and making sure that even if you had it at your house, that you could use it. And so kind of over the course of my time and then going to NTIA, this has been at the center of almost everything that I've done. And again, I think that a huge piece of that it's been at the center of what people needed. And so if you were going to be good at your job, which I don't know that I was, but I've been trying to be good at my job, then you're going to respond to what people's needs are.
I spend a lot of time in the Ocoee, whitewater kayaking, and Polk County, which it's kind of, you come through Chattanooga and it's all the haves, right? It's, not only the gig city, the first 10 gig city, now the first 25 gig city, and everybody's connected with, world-class fiber. And then you get to Polk County, and it's the have-nots that don't have really any connectivity. And hopefully Taylor is working hard on getting that corrected. But, can you talk a little bit about the economic impact that you guys saw because Chattanooga was really the have-nots before you guys did all this?
Yeah, we there was tremendous change, and so we had one of the highest wage growths in the country for a mid-sized city. In 2020, Forbes magazine said we'd be the #1 place for new jobs in America. Now, 2020 didn't quite turn out that way, but I don't think that is related to this discussion. But we really saw a huge amount of economic impact. And when I was in the state Senate, I represented the area just to the west, which was called Marion County, a rural county. And then when you're going to Polk County to go rafting like you are, first you drive, when you get out of Hamilton County, where Chattanooga is, you can go to Bradley County and then over to Polk County. And there were people just across the line in Bradley County who had dial-up speeds at the same time that people 2 or 3 miles away from them had the fastest high-speed internet in the world. And then I had my old constituents just to the west of me who were saying, hey, we want to have this opportunity, this resource, And I was, trying to get that to them. We had a huge fight, as you may know, that went through the FCC and up through the Court of Appeals about providing high-speed internet. Lots of stories written about Chattanooga. You can go read about them. But we couldn't make this happen. And so I really saw the need to make sure that this was reaching everybody and that it had the potential to transform communities all around the country. And there were barriers, huge barriers to doing that. And so the fact that I spent most of the last decade talking about these barriers and how we got to get over them. And now, over the last 3 years, since they passed the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, thanks to the Biden-Harris administration's leadership, I've gotten a chance to work on this thing that, over the course of the last decade, lots and lots of people would tell me, oh, that's great. It'll never happen. Like, we just got to accept what there is. And I think, again, huge testament to President Biden's leadership that took advantage of a moment that we could have missed easily and said, no, we're going to put $65 billion into making sure that every American has access to affordable, high-speed internet.
So, it's kind of, as Yogi Berra would say, it's deja vu all over again. If we look at back in FDR moment, right, the, rural electrification, and so appropriate that you're at RUS now that you've, so we're doing this all again now. Instead of electricity, it's with broadband. And can you talk a little bit? I mean, RUS borrowers were, and RUS was investing in critical infrastructure since the beginning. No one had to tell you guys to deploy fiber. You were building fiber communities when FCC was subsidizing DSL for 4 by 1 megabit. Can you talk a little bit of maybe historically of, how RUS is evolved from kind of the rural electrification to now, really being a leader in broadband?
Yeah, so the rural electrification was something I learned about in school, and it was through, as you said, FDR established the Rural Electrification Administration. We added water and telecommunications and became the Rural Utility Service, as our name is. But the fact that I get to lead that organization is amazing to me. And I remember I was in Missouri, and there was I talked about this history. I was there for the groundbreaking of a Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Reconnect grant. There was this guy, Gary, and he came up to me. I still have his picture on my phone. Sorry, not you, Gary, different Gary. And he was a farmer, elderly. He said, I remember when electrification came to my family farm, and my dad wired the whole barn before it happened. And then the day that we knew we would have electricity, he worked until late, so it was super dark. And then he brought us all out to the barn and flipped the switch, and the lights came on inside the barn. And he was like, I think about that all the time because that's what internet is for me today. And my high-speed internet, puts tools in my hand. And he showed me his little farm facts book. He said, this is where my dad and I used to keep all of our information about our farming. And, that's nothing compared to what I get now through precision ag on my tractor. And so I think about this history all the time, and what we are doing, what the Biden-Harris administration is doing through Internet for All, has this legacy. And the last piece of thinking about that legacy from back to the FDR days is when we invested in electricity for all, when we invested in all these different infrastructure projects like roads and highways for everybody, we unleashed the power of our country to become the dominant economic player of the 20th century. And those investments are still paying off today in our country. And that's what I think you're seeing right now is these investments are going to have a long tail. for us because we are doing the smart thing now. And you don't always see it today, but when you get more people involved in the economy, when you get more people both on the production side so that they are selling things online, and also on the purchasing side where they're buying things online, it's just increasing economic activity, and that will have downstream effects for our country for decades to come.
Yeah, we were just in Iowa. It was our last regional conference, and it was focused on precision ag. And I was just amazed at the speakers. They were talking about building their digital twins with AI platforms, and just looking at the heat maps that you can only be 5 feet will make a huge difference on productivity based on the moisture content and fertilizing and all these things. So being able to increase yield and be a profitable farmer, my parents had a apple orchard, and my dad would say that if he had $1 million, he'd farm and farm until he didn't have a penny left. So we want to turn that around, right? So that you can actually be able to make a living and support yourself as a farmer. So it is pretty amazing. Hey, can you help break down now? Obviously we spend a lot of time focused on broadband, but in your role at RUS, can you break it down between electricity and water, sewer, and broadband of kind of your programs and funding and where, kind of the focus is?
Yeah, so we have, again, as I said, these three areas: water, electricity, and telecom. Water, we do about somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.5 billion worth of mostly loans, some grants every year. And those go almost exclusively to municipalities because they're the ones in the water business. And these are for very small communities with tremendous amounts of needs to either upgrade their water system or often to fix what they have, including decentralized water, people who have septic systems. On the electric side, that's, as I said, that's where we started. In an average year, we might do about $5 billion worth of almost exclusively loans to entities. Frequently, that's electric co-ops, rural electric co-ops. We've been increasing that. Last year, we did $6.88 billion. And thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, we got roughly $11 billion of new funding to do forgivable loans and grants and other things for clean energy in rural America. President Biden just announced, got to be with the president in Wisconsin to announce $7.3 billion worth of selectees for that funding, which will do about $29 billion worth of new projects. There's more on the way that's coming with that, and we'll end up doing about $40 billion worth of new clean energy infrastructure in rural America. As you pointed out earlier, when we fund these rural electric co-ops, they're often building out fiber through their network, which has lots of effects. Could be for direct provision of broadband. It could be to be middle mile pieces for others, or to lease to others. So a lot of that funding that we see on the electric side, people are trying to figure out how that interacts with the telecom side as well. So we see that interaction at play every day.
And then tell us a little bit about Reconnect. So where are we on Reconnect?
So Reconnect, we've now done 4 rounds of Reconnect, and we're about to issue the 5th. So in this administration, we've given out a little bit under $4 billion. A little bit over half of that came as a result of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, so $2 billion. And sometimes these numbers, sound so crazy that, as a former mayor who didn't get to say the word billion a lot, like, I just want to pause for a minute and say, we are talking about billions here. So, a little bit under $4 billion in the administration. That will connect about 627,000 people. So a huge piece forward. We are connecting people today. We connect people every day as a result of that. And including from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, we're seeing results right now and hearing the stories of what people are seeing from that. And then we have a new round of Reconnect funding, round 5, which is going to be announced. At least the first recipients will be announced in the next few weeks. I think you'll hear in the next few weeks our beginning of round 5. We also have a smaller initiative called Community Connect, which is in the $5 million range. We have another round of those. Those will also be coming out sometime in the next few weeks.
So Farm Bill expired at end of September, and now Congress, has to they put the extension to keep the government funded, but they really need to address the Farm Bill. So what is the potential impact on RUS and Reconnect?
Well, we expect and hope that Congress is going to do its job and pass the Farm Bill, and therefore should not have as an effect on us. The real thing for us is that a lot of our funding is, especially for Reconnect, is not mandatory. So there are certain programs in the Farm Bill that when you pass the Farm Bill, every time it mandates that you get money. Reconnect is not one of those. Okay, so we rely on the appropriations bills to get Reconnect funding, and I think that one of the things that I just want to stress as a result of this is that I think NTIA is going to be remarkably successful. They're doing what they need to do to get the funding out. But as we did rural electrification 90 years ago, and we're still doing billions of dollars worth of work in it every year. These things don't end. It's infrastructure. This doesn't end. And we still have customers who are in need, who are going to be in need, who, whether it's precision ag or other things, we're going to need to keep moving forward. And we don't want to see funding fatigue, which I know is possible out there. And so we need to keep reminding, leaders in Congress that, hey, this work will continue. We fund the hardest to reach connections in our country. And I've been everywhere looking at places that are, hey, there's a lake and then there's some trees. Our nodes end way over here. We got to figure out a way to get around the lake and through the trees and over to this little group of people who lives over here. It's challenging and requires funding, and ISPs, even the most dedicated, community-minded, if it's going to hurt your system financially and hurt everybody else, you're not going to do it. And so making sure that we have this funding source that continues on through Reconnect, I think is critical for our country.
Well, you mentioned when it gets hard, right? And, NTI has recently proposed some guidance for alternative technologies where they're considering to recognize what they have classified as unreliable broadband, low Earth orbit satellites and unlicensed wireless, to either consider a location to be served, put a check on it saying, oh, you got a LEO satellite, you're good, or possibly even allow the state to subsidize unreliable broadband. I believe that if you can get power to someone's house, you can get fiber there. I mean, we've proven that in 90 years, right? That everybody that we have electricity today, there's no reason we can't get the power. Is there some way that we could double down between RUS and NTI to make sure that we don't screw people out of their future by just giving a checkbox saying, well, yeah, you have some kind of unreliable broadband. You guys are good, versus actually really making sure that they have a sustainable, fiber connection for the future.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to continue to reach those people. That's the nature of our program, because if you read our regulations, if you read our mandate, which I know you have, you'll see that, if people have um, internet that is less than 25.3, if they have unreliable internet, then we're going to make sure that they are reached by our funding. So, you know, um, there's a woman named Chessie Addy. She's in Decatur, Mississippi, and Decatur Telephone is got funding through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law for new connections. Well, Chessie is a manager at like for a facility, but she's remote. She's a manager, nursing manager at a healthcare facility, but she worked remotely, and her employer said that they were going to fire her because her connection was too unreliable. And you know, you can't tell your employer if it's raining, I can't work today, or if the wind's blowing too hard and something's happening with the trees, I can't work today. The employer doesn't understand that. So when she got high speed internet through Decatur fiber at her home, that literally saved her job. And I just, again, as we think about what we want to make sure people have going forward, we know that there are tough choices. Funding is limited. Everybody has got to do the best that they can to administer the program. But we're going to keep through Reconnect. We're going to keep making sure that people who need this resource have it.
So, I was just in Eastern Tennessee, Western North Carolina over the weekend, and the devastation. We got pounded on. I live on an island, but nothing like the 30 trillion gallons of water that dumped on Asheville and Eastern Tennessee. What are you hearing, and what does RUS have to do to help rebuild some of these areas?
Yeah, great question. I was home this weekend in Eastern Tennessee too, and you know, I am praying for the people who are currently suffering, knowing that we're about to get hit again here this week, and so we are making every resource available. So on the water side, a lot of these, people need clean water, and a lot of these facilities have been damaged, and so trying to make sure that we are reaching out to municipalities, figuring out what they need. On the electric side, we fortunately put together a new resource last year that we called Cool Loans, which are specifically designed to be quick uh, for entities that have suffered some kind of event. And so we're making those cool loans available to people. And then, we're talking to our networks and ensuring that they have what they need. At the same time, I understand that we're talking about these larger utility things, and people are just trying to get day to day, what they need. FEMA is going to be the first response, and I think uh, we're always just trying to figure out. Listen, we don't want to overwhelm people, right? Because they've got lots of important things, including, by the way, the people who run these networks or municipalities. They might be out of their homes too, right? How do we support them, make things available to them, while also recognizing, hey, listen, first thing is you need a place to live. You need to make sure that you've got some clothes and all these other things, and then like let's ensure that the utilities get what they need too.
Yeah, you don't know how critical electricity, fresh water, and broadband are until you don't have them, and it's you know,
That is absolutely true. The one thing that I will say that I certainly found at when I was mayor is high-speed internet is a great resilience tool. So if your internet survives this storm, you have access to a lot of things that you need, going forward after the storm. And you know, you might still be able to operate your business. You might be able to contact people. You might be able to, like, if your internet works, you just have a lot more access to things. Plus, for those who have smart grids, which is also a fiber piece, the smart grid allows the electric utility to figure out where they can get the power to and from, and that gets the lines up quicker. So fiber and broadband make a huge difference in making us more resilient to these storms that we know are becoming more more intense and unfortunately more frequent.
Well, Andy, we just really appreciate everything you're doing for our country. What you've done for Chattanooga, what you've done for Tennessee, now what you're doing for the nation. You're just a great ambassador for all things that are important to, just the basic essentials, electricity, water, broadband, and just quality of life. So thank you for your contributions. And I look forward to getting back together with everybody next Wednesday. We're going to have Dr. Amanda Weinstein and Dr. Adam Dewberry from the Center on Rural Innovation discuss their latest study on data-driven proof fiber broadband boosts income, entrepreneurship, and business investment in rural America. So you're not going to miss that. And we'll see you guys next Wednesday. So long from Calgary. Andy, we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you, Gary.